are people... Why are these protests, who, by the way, are not all organic? Many of these people are either paid for or going there to protect illegal people. So
and protect legal people, protect people in their community, protect US citizens. I know that I saw it for myself there. There are US citizens who are terrified about leaving the house because of your president. They're Americans. They're being terrorized by their own government.
Okay, well, let's go back to November 2024. President Trump was elected on two
He didn't run on this. He didn't say he'd do this.
Yes, he did.
Yeah, he said he'd deport people. He didn't say he'd terrorize American citizens.
He absolutely ran on this. And again, I will go back to if the local communities would, rather than say, no, you can't have access to our jail, we will not cooperate with you, what choice does ICE have other than to go into
not
the communities?
Not to kill Americans.
And to, well, that is a tragedy.
That's their choice.
And we've got it. But you know what? I think hopefully the lesson from this will be that these sanctuary cities will start cooperating with ICE. The American people, while they did not vote to kill Alex Bretti, did vote to control the border and control illegal immigration.
Jennifer Ewing there, spokesperson for Republican Overseas UK. Really grateful for your time.
Thanks.
This morning we're going to be talking to Sir Ed Davey, the leader of the Liberal Democrats, right after this. Time's 11:23.
Weekdays from 7 a.m.
They have fatal incompetence.
Straight to the point.
What is the problem they've got over there?
Nick Ferrari at breakfast on LBC.
The country's going backwards. Growth down. Energy prices up.
Listen on our free Global Player app or the new LBC app. Download it now from your app store. LBC.
The following is from TfL.
My name was Luna, like the moon. I was 2 days short of my 17th birthday when I was killed. My killer wasn't a bad man. He had a rescue dog called Frank and rang his mum every Sunday. He wasn't a speed freak. He just thought it was okay to go a few miles an hour over the limit. But that was enough to knock me off my bike and kill me.
Speeding injures or kills over 1,000 people in London every year. Slow down. To the Mayor of London and TfL, every journey matters.
Experience. It's knowing the difference between a good deal and, well, a great deal. Right now, get 3 months free when you take out Saga Health Insurance. You get 24/7 GP access whenever you want it. And the freedom to choose your preferred private hospital with your own room, should you need it. Search Saga Health Insurance for a quote today. New customers starting a policy before the 19th of February pay by monthly direct debit for the first year. Terms and conditions apply. Over 50s only.
At Ocado, you'll save 25% on your first shop and get free delivery, which means if you were to buy a 4-cheese pizza, you'd basically be getting one of the cheeses for free. Save and splurge at Ocado, the online supermarket. Geographical and other restrictions. Minimum spend £60 and charges apply. New customers only. Maximum saving £20. Terms at ocado.com.
Another early morning gym session skipped. Some New Year's resolutions set you up to fail. But a new Mazda CX-30 is the one you will want to keep. Available with 0% APR and a £750 deposit contribution during the Mazda January sale. Order by the 31st of January. Search Mazda. Available on PCP when financed by Mazda Financial Services by the 31st of March 26. Indemnities may be required. Terms apply. Participating dealers. See website.
This is LBC Sunday with Lewis Goodall. Call 0345 6060 973. Text 84850. Alexa, send a comment to LBC.
Time is 11:25. Joined a little bit earlier this morning by Sir Ed Davey, who's of course leader of the Lib Dems. I started by first asking him, of course, where else but about President Trump on the comments which he's now gone back on the British soldiers' contribution to Afghanistan. Asked him for his reaction.
Well, I was shocked like everybody else, and actually really worried for the people who'd lost loved ones, all those soldiers who had suffered life-changing injuries. It was such an insult to our country. I'm relieved, by the way, that he's rowed back because of the level of hurt.
Quite rare for him.
It is quite rare, and you know, if the Prime Minister's conversation with him helped to that, well, that's good. It doesn't change my overall position on Trump, though. I mean, he's a disaster for America and the world, and I still think overall Keir Starmer's approach to him has been weak and hasn't worked.
Do you think? He's rowed back on this. He's rowed back on Greenland. Isn't that not vindication of the way the Prime Minister's handled it?
I think the Prime Minister's intervention may have helped the row back on the comments about our troops in Afghanistan. But I think he rowed back on Greenland not for anything to do with the UK. It was really to do with the EU. and the EU talked about the bazooka of retaliatory tariffs that had impact on the American stock market. No doubt, Donald Trump's rich mates rang him up and say, "Don't do this." And the shame was that our Prime Minister took off the table in his press conference the option of retaliatory tariffs. He didn't join with the Europeans, so I'm afraid he can take no credit for that.
Should the King's state visit in the summer go ahead?
It's got to be under question. The row back on Greenland, thanks to the EU, the row back on the comments means that it's definitely not a complete no, but it's got to be in the air. I mean, putting the King into a state visit where President Trump has been so appalling to our country, definitely it should be debated.
Well, do you think, just personally, do you think it should go ahead? I mean, clearly you call him a disaster. You're saying that the government's approach to him is too supine. He's clearly highly unpredictable. Rule number 1 of the British Constitution, they say, is not to embarrass the government, not to embarrass the King. There is a risk to embarrass the King by sending him.
Yeah, there is. That's why I've raised the issue and why it has to be kept under review. I mean, as you know, it's the Prime Minister's job to advise the King. The King takes his decisions, but the Prime Minister to advise. And up until the row back on Greenland, my advice would have been, if I'd been the Prime Minister, is no, don't think we should go. But I accept there's a number of other issues. The problem I see, Lewis, on this is that Trump is a serial problem for our country, on our economy and on our defence. So I suspect it probably shouldn't go ahead, but I would want to use that in a way which suits the national interest.
Given what we're seeing in Minnesota, do you understand why some football fans might be concerned about the World Cup this summer in America?
Yeah, I do.
Going?
Yeah, I do, but I'd rather think that we should try and not undermine the World Cup. It means so much to so many people. And let's remember, a lot of the matches are playing in Mexico and Canada.
Most of them are in the US.
Yeah, but I think we should reach out to the Canadians. They've been fantastic. Prime Minister Carney, one of my Liberal colleagues, has really led the way in the opposition to Trump.
But I suppose some football fans, particularly ethnic minority ones, might see what's happening at the border, see what's happening with ICE, and worry about going to American cities right now, having to carry paperwork and all that sort of stuff. Can you understand why people might be worried about that?
Of course I can. And they'll make their own decisions, and we'll see what the advice from the Foreign Office is. That's going to be quite critical. It puts them in quite a difficult position, I think.
Do you think the Foreign Office will have to assess all of this stuff with regards to the World Cup?
Normally does.
Do you think NATO is still a going concern? We've had a week, there's a lot of hand-wringing about it, but we've had a couple of weeks where the President of the United States has been threatening to invade NATO sovereign territory. Now, yes, he has rowed back from it for now, saying he won't use force, but those threats were made, and they will have been noted in the Kremlin, and they'll have been noted elsewhere. Is NATO still an effective security alliance right now, as long as Donald Trump is in the White House?
I wish you weren't able to ask that question, because I am a strong supporter of NATO. It's been crucial to Britain's defence and security for over 75 years, the most successful military alliance in history. And when we've got threats like Putin, it's important. But the fact you can ask that question, and it can be a credible question, is deeply troubling.
That sort of makes the point, doesn't it?
Yeah.
NATO is a sort of confidence trick, and the fact that I'm able to ask the questions rather implies that trick has less potent than it was.
But precisely. The question actually is how you respond to that. I don't think you throw NATO away. If you can keep it, we do that. But we also need to be clear-eyed. We need to make sure that our defence industry has the support it needs. That's why I'm calling for a new war bonds, we've named it, so that we can get £20 billion, 10 billion this year, 10 billion next year, so we can massively speed up the rearmament of our country. And that's obviously to do with the fact that Trump is undermining NATO. It's also to do with the threat that Putin poses.
Is it still effective though, NATO? As of today, right now, as long as Trump is still there, does it work?
I think it does. I think it will make the Kremlin think twice still. However, we get such mixed messages from Trump. He's so unpredictable. He says that Russia's a threat to the Arctic. That's why he needs Greenland, and then he puts Putin on the board of peace. So try and work that one out, Lewis. But I think the real issue for the UK government, for UK politicians, is how do you respond to the example, the Joint Expeditionary Force, which Britain set up in 2014, it's a force of 10 northern European countries, including all now in NATO, given Sweden and Finland have joined NATO. We need to be focusing on those types of groupings, which I can think be really effective for our defence.
Is he quite well, do you think?
I don't know, doesn't it?
It's a serious question. No, I know, Sir Ed, but it's a serious question. I mean, I don't know how much of the Davos speech that you saw. I don't know how much of...
Too much.
Well, indeed so. I mean, I think the delegates who were there might have agreed with you, but I think that most people... we spoke a lot about Joe Biden's health and his mental acuity. People said, well, we can't let this happen again and we've got to have a more open conversation. Do you think anybody looks at him and thinks he's quite well?
I think my honest response to you, Lewis, is the same to NATO. I'm not quite sure, but it's a question again. The fact that it's a question should alarm everybody. And whether he's going to sleep in his own meetings, whether he's completely incoherent, it does pose those questions. And I think he's in trouble if he can't find the medical evidence, independent medical evidence, to put him to sleep.
You've spoken of the need for a close relationship with Europe. Obviously, in the past, Lib Dems remain avowedly pro-European.
Indeed.
I wonder, though, you've been reluctant to talk about full-on reapplication to the EU, but I do wonder, given the dynamics of the Trump presidency, the geopolitics is moving very, very quickly. I mean, until this week we were talking, as I say, about a potential invasion of Greenland. That could come back. Just because he said it's gone now doesn't mean it doesn't come back. Is there a world where EU membership should be back on the table for this country earlier than perhaps the earlier politics might have allowed?
There are two real barriers to it at the moment, as I see. One is rebuilding the trust with our European friends. It's one of the reasons why we have leaned into things like the customs union, rebuild that trade and relation. That's really good for both sides. A youth mobility scheme with any party strongly advocating what Europe actually also would sign up for. But that rebuilding of trust will take some time. Second barrier, Nigel Farage. I think Europeans look at his relative success and are worried that if he becomes more powerful, that will undermine any rapprochement. So the other part of my pro-European strategy is beating Nigel Farage. And I am so focused on winning for the Liberal
Could you imagine going into an election where you would put EU membership back on the table?
Well, we have long said, and it was in our last manifesto, that has to be the long-term goal. We think Britain's future is work, whether it's defence or the economy.
So you'd like us to rejoin?
No, I've said that you take your manifesto for the next few years, and there are two big barriers. I have to repeat myself, Lewis. First of all, it's rebuilding the trust. If you talk to European politicians, guess what? They don't trust our country, and you've got to rebuild that, and that doesn't happen in a year or two. It takes a little bit of time. Sadly, by the way. Secondly, we have to beat Nigel Farage. He is a threat to our country. The fact that the Tories, are defecting to them and they're sort of following reform's coattails, it sends alarm bells across Europe. So one of my key aims as a pro-European is to win. We have to win to defeat this
But you're willing to take on about the issue of Europe?
I have done. I do. I mean, I blame both the Conservatives and Nigel Farage for the damage that Brexit has done to our country, to the cost of living of people. People would not have such a problem. Taxes wouldn't be going up so high if it wasn't for Nigel Farage and the Conservatives doing what they did over Brexit.
You've spoken about the need for war bonds, you mentioned just a few minutes ago. Why do we need them? Why can't we just borrow the money on the international capital markets? Why do we need specific war bonds or defence bonds?
Well, they've been used very effectively before. I mean, give you an example, in a different context actually, but in 2021, the Conservatives issued green gilts. They raised £10 billion. I think it was a good move. Unfortunately, they undermined it because they then moved away from their position on climate change. But it actually, we welcomed it at the time. It was a good idea. If you look at the way Poland has used a similar instrument, they have really massively ramped up their defence spending. And of course, there's the history of war bonds as well.
But unless the interest rate is higher, then why would the public want to borrow from the government? They could just put the money in ISAs or premium bonds or whatever it is.
There are two reasons. First of all, I think there's a psychological attraction. You know your money is going there. And secondly, whether it's an institutional investor or a personal investor, they're going to be ring-fenced, hypothecated in a way which others aren't. And, by the way, they're going to be accompanied by what we call...
But I could just buy a premium bond from the government, so I know the money's going to the government. Why do I need to buy a defence bond?
Because if you're interested in the security of our country, you know these are going to be ring-fenced. If you buy a premium bond, it could be it's just going to the overall funding, right? So that is why people have gone down this road in the past.
Except it'll be regressive, Ed Davey. It'll be regressive because who has the spare cash to buy bonds? Older, wealthier households, people with large savings. People already benefit from high interest rates. Meanwhile, younger people just living paycheck to paycheck, as the Americans say, fund defence through their taxes anyway, don't get the interest income. So
no, that's not the case.
Well, it is the case.
No, it absolutely isn't the case. Let me explain why. You quite rightly challenged me about they can put the money in premium bonds. I'm not suggesting there's a higher rate. So that people got the choice with the same.
In which case, why wouldn't I just put it in an ISA or put it into a premium bond or a pension fund or whatever it happens to be? Why do you just need to give it?
Sorry, I thought I'd answer that point, but let me do it again. I think that first of all, there's a psychological reason. That you want to be part of an effort to rearm our country, given the threats. You can do that. You can show your patriotism by buying these bonds. But secondly, and this is really, really important, they are ring-fenced, they are hypothecated, unlike any of the other main borrowing instruments.
Just briefly, the government's proposing this morning a new national police force. Your thoughts on that?
Well, we looked at it's in the context of a wider set of police reforms, some of which actually they borrowed from us. So I'm welcome to those. Well, for example, getting rid of police crime commissioners. We've been the only one arguing for that. They're getting rid of that as part of these police reforms. And there are others that we have been arguing for. But here's the crunch point. When we look at the detail, I am worried that it seems to be a big centralisation of power. I am worried there's quite a lot of politicisation of the control of the police, following on from what Jenrick wanted to do with the judiciary. And what we really need is more community police, and that isn't in that document. And if you look at serious crime, fortunately, is coming down. Murders are coming down, knife crimes are coming down. There are some awful incidents, but broadly they're coming down. What isn't coming down is that sort of shoplifting, crime on the streets, antisocial behaviour, and the way to tackle that is strong community police. That's what we think should be the priority.
Why aren't you doing better in the polls, Fred David? Isn't it time? Is this the year where you actually start to make a bit of a breakthrough? I know what you're going to say. You're going to say, well, we do well in council elections, we do well in specific places, fair enough. But in terms of the national polling picture, you're getting left behind by the populism.
Look at the polls at the moment. I've seen 2 or 3 where there's 10 points between 5 parties. That means that a random walk in first past the post. And my total focus is on winning. And you're right to say we are winning. Under my leadership, the first general election, we got our best result for 100 years. Then the local elections, after that first one, since the general election, we beat Labour and the Conservatives for the first time ever. And who won more council by-elections last year? The Liberal Democrats. Yes. So I believe in winning. When you've got the threat of someone like Nigel Farage and the right wing that's on it, you have to win, and we are winning.
That was Sir Ed Davey, leader, of course, of the Liberal Democrats. You're listening to Sunday with Lewis Goodall here on LBC. The time, late to the news, I think it's fair to say, 11:40. LBC News headlines with Matt Hewitt.
Crime have convinced the government to comprehensively reform policing. Sarah Jones says the new National Police Service for England and Wales will tackle criminal gangs and counter-terrorism. 86 people have been arrested on suspicion of aggravated trespass at Wormwood Scrubs prison in West London. The police say they were deployed after the group of pro-Palestine demonstrators refused to leave the grounds when ordered to do so. And there's growing anger in Minneapolis after the second killing by federal immigration officers this month. A former colleague of Alex Pretty says he's incensed at comments made by Donald Trump's Homeland Security chief appearing to blame the nurse for his own shooting. LBC weather, cloudy for many, heavy showers, some hill snow in northeast Scotland, a few brighter breaks later in the south, and highs of 5 to 10 degrees.
This is LBC.
Go on, leave the never-ending laundry pile, quiet flat, and empty fridge at home. Hop on the train and go into the workplace zone with Southeastern. Whether you're heading in for a change of scene, to share ideas, or enjoy a lunchtime chat with your colleagues, with our great range of tickets, we've got the one to suit your commute. Buy yours now on our app or website and pay no booking fees. So, go on, go in.
Thanks for the key deliverables, David. Now, who'd like to...
Stay out all night! Yahoo!
That's That's brilliant. So, okay, sales targets. Are we hitting it?
The dance floor! Party time! Woo-hoo!
There's more than one you, and with Specsavers 2 for 1, you can choose glasses for at least 2 yous, from £70 with standard single vision lenses.
Nice moves, David!
Book an appointment at specsavers.co.uk. Conditions apply.
Big Motoring World are big on value. But what does that mean for you? Well, we price check our cars every day, so we can give you the best price. Guaranteed. In fact, 95% of our cars are priced below market value. Big Motoring World, we're big on value. See website for nearest store. Visit bigmotoringworld.co.uk or one of our stores for our price promise and terms and conditions.
The following is from TfL.
I got loads of flowers the other day, and messages from people I didn't even know. My mates spelled my name in T-lads, and my mom hung my favourite footy shirt on the railings, next to the lamppost, where I got killed. By a nice lady, just someone who thought it was okay to go a few miles an hour over the limit.
Speeding injures or kills over 1,000 people in London every year. Slow down. To the Mayor of London and TfL, every journey matters.
Nothing beats that just booked feeling. Because when you book a Jet2 holiday, you start dreaming of pool days and seeing the sights. Get ahead for summer. Book now with just a £60 deposit per person. Choose from our best rooms and hotels and save £200 per couple. Nothing beats a Jet2 holiday. Package holidays you can trust. Optional protected. Subject to availability and conditions.
Sunday with Lewis Goodall on LBC. Call 0345 6060 973.
Time is 11:44. You might remember, of course, just a few weeks ago, a huge fiasco and broglio about Elon Musk and the use on X, on Grok, about the creation of sexualized deepfakes. Well, this week, Jess Sato, is the Labour MP for Lowestoft, has put on Blue Sky that an ex-user created an AI video of her being chloroformed and prepared for rape. So it rather indicates that the backtrack that apparently Elon Musk was supposed to undertake has not quite happened. Jess Sato joins us now. Jess, thanks so much for joining us on the show this morning. Just tell us exactly what happened, how this came to your attention.
Well, I have been campaigning to ban notification apps and tools, so exactly the sort of tools like Grok, which are used by millions across the world to take images of women and deepfake them, often removing all their clothes, putting them in pornographic positions, but also more worryingly, putting bruises, bullet holes and so forth. Because I've been speaking out about this, a number of ex-users decided to take my image from my ex-profile and put me in a bikini. I then spoke out about that, and I found that one poster had sort of taken me on and sort of said I don't care enough about women in general. Elon Musk then reshared that, and in that particular feed, somebody then created a video of me through Grok, having the chloroform over my mouth and being leaned back, and then my skirts being lifted up. Now, technically, there was no nudity in that image, but it is a very chilling image to see of yourself. And clearly, the government has taken some really swift action. So we're speeding up the introduction of a ban on notification apps, and we also brought into law the criminalisation of the creation of intimate images without consent. This particular video, though, maybe doesn't cross a threshold because it isn't intimate in the sense that it doesn't show flesh or anything like that. What it is very threatening and frankly despicable.
It must have been profoundly disturbing.
This is a very disturbing thing to happen, but it's happening to thousands and thousands of women, and look, it's been happening for years as well. These deepfake tools have been able to do this for at least 4 years. It's just the fact that Grok was able to do it so immediately on the X platform, which has a huge reach, that people have been seeing this so frequently.
And Musk himself retweeted the initial thing which led to this happening.
Yes, I mean, that in itself wasn't actually an image of me, but it was a still from a BBC interview that I was doing saying that this had happened to me. And clearly what happens if Elon Musk does reshare posts like that is that users then pile on and take the opportunity to just kind of knock you down even further. And look, this is a form of digital sexual assault. It happens to the majority of women. So 99% of images that are uploaded to these apps, and let's remember, there's not just Grok, there are thousands of these apps out there. 99% of these images are women and girls. It's specifically used to demean, degrade and silence women online.
Do you, very briefly, Jess, do you have any faith that, just taking Grok and Elon Musk specifically, do you have any faith or belief that Musk will do as he said and clamp down on this sort of thing?
I don't think that there is going to be any real action until we can find the legislation internationally to bring serious guardrails around these companies. We need watermarking of AI so that people understand when images have been doctored. And we also need greater rights for users over their own images, because at the moment, the law, as much as we are innovating and we're moving very, very quickly, it's simply not keeping pace. And just today we heard about women who've been secretly filmed using smart glasses. That's the new technology on the market, and their images were then put up on TikTok, and they've received huge amounts of abuse and harassment, even being called in the middle of the night. So, you know, technology is advancing so quickly. Unfortunately, it's always used to abuse women.
Jess Sato there, Labour MP for Lowestoft, who has had those sexualised deepfake images generated of her. I should say, by the way, the Revenge Porn Helpline provides advice, guidance and support on matters such as this. 0345 6000 459 is the number. 0345 6000 459. You're listening to Sunday with Lewis Goodall here on LBC. The time is just approaching 11:49.
Coming up at 12 on LBC, Ali Mirage.
The King of the North, Andy Burnham, wants to return to Parliament. Is he the man to save Labour? Should homeschooling be banned? And how do you stop hormones ruling your life?
Ali Mirage at 12. Listen on our free Global Player app or the new LBC app.
Quick question. Well, actually 3, but they are quick. 1. Do you have a car? 2. Are you looking to save on your car insurance? And 3. Do you have a Tesco Club Card? Well, if you do, you could get exclusive Club Card prices when you take out or renew a policy with Tesco Car Insurance. And with 3 levels of cover available, you can choose the one that's right for you. Over 1 million Club Card members are already saving money. So just search online for Tesco Car Insurance.
Every investor has a future in mind, whether it's seeing your kids through uni or picturing yourself retiring in Tuscany. The hard part can be knowing how to get there. JP Morgan Personal Investing can help you see the path ahead. With our intuitive app, expert support, and 150 years of JP Morgan's investing experience, you can start making more informed investment decisions today. Search JP Morgan Personal Investing. Invest with clarity. Capital at risk.
When you're smiling. Banning dental group clinics. With over 5,000 top-rated Google reviews. Keep on smiling.
Hi Derek, Tara from Flash Designs here, hope you're well. Not sure if you've seen my emails from last month, but could you please pay my invoice? Thank you so much. Bye. Hi, it's Tara, Flash Designs. Did you get my last voicemail? I know you're busy, but please pay my invoice today, if possible. Hello, again, it's Tara, again, politely nudging, again.
Still chasing unpaid invoices? Let Sage Copilot help do the chasing so you can get paid up to 7 days faster. Search Sage Accountant today.
EasyJet's Big Orange Sale is now on. Beat the blues and book the beach with up to £500 off package holidays and up to 20% off flights. EasyJet. Get out there. Select the dates and flights. Flight sale ends 3rd of Feb. Holiday sale ends 3rd of March. Min spend and ATOL protected. T's and C's apply.
The following is from TfL.
My name was Luna, like the moon. I was 2 days short of my 17th birthday when I was killed. My killer wasn't a bad man. He had a rescue dog called Frank and rang his mum every Sunday. He wasn't a speed freak. He just thought it was okay to go a few miles an hour over the limit. But that was enough to knock me off my bike and kill me.
Speeding injures or kills over 1,000 people in London every year. Slow down. To the Mayor of London and TfL, every journey matters.
Sunday with Lewis Goodall on LBC. Text 848.
itakuwa useful.